And welcome back, everybody. Hopefully another fun video here at Blue Glow Electronics. Sorry we haven't been making as many videos lately as I would like, but work has been my day job has been a little crazy lately. So hopefully by this fall it'll calm down a little bit and we can get back to it over the winter time. But right now what I've got on the bench is an Audio Research SP-3-A1 preamplifier, Phono Preamplifier. I can't say enough good things about these amplifiers. You know, over the years I've had just about every well-known, highly respected tube preamplifier out there. I've had the Macintosh 110Z, had the Marantz 7, had one of these. I've had a multitude of kits that I've built, and Bottlehead and various other ones, and tell you these are hard to beat. They're up there with the best of the best of the best. So this is going to be a multi-part video, maybe 2 or 3 videos. The first part here is mostly going to focus on getting ready to order parts for this restoration. So a guy sent me this in via mail and would like it completely rebuilt. Says it's not sounding all that great. And I've torn into it a little bit, enough to figure out why it's not sounding so great. So I thought I'd walk you through that, walk you through the parts list I've kind of put together at this point, show you one of these I've got on the bench that is my own, and kind of just get you prepped for you know, what I would do up to the point of getting ready to solder. In other words, I'll have to order a bunch of parts from multiple places to restore this thing. And while we're waiting on those parts, I'm going to dive into some other things, but this will get us going for today. Okay, first off, you know, I would say that this thing has had a restoration before, but I would say it was a less than pro restoration. I'm not saying it's horrible, it's just a lot of cosmetic and kind of aesthetic desires, as well as they really didn't go with the right parts, and I'll walk you through a little bit of that. You can see this whole series of resistors right here. You know, they've kind of been replaced, but you can see they look like spider legs crawling all over the place. Whoever did it did not have a nice component bender, and these things are like $2. I could have made that look 100 times better with just a $2 part there. So got that. They've also replaced all the Zener diodes over here. This Zener stack, these are all in series. As you can see, they're just kind of stacked in there, kind of ugly. You know, leads been all over the place, but you know, functional. Just not the greatest cosmetics. And then they've used a wide variety of parts in here. So I see everything from yellow poly caps to kind of orange drop capacitors here. Up here they used a bunch of Mundorf poly caps, which are not horrible. They've used, again, some orange drops along in here. They've been using some more yellow poly caps here, and they're actually putting some of these in parallel. If you'll notice here, to get the values that they want, they didn't have the exact right parts, so they're paralleling two. Like here, they're paralleling 2.1 microfarad capacitors together to get like a 1.5 microfarad capacitor. And you know, just kind of a hodgepodge, not a lot of rhyme or reason. You know, they've replaced some large carbon composite resistors back here with some precision metal film resistors. And while in concept, that might sound like the right thing. Hey, I'm going to replace those old big fat 2-watt carbon composite resistors with these precision metal film resistors. Some of what you lose there is the tolerance to surge on resistors. So I'll be replacing these with some ohmite carbon composite resistors that are designed for power supplies and surge. So would be a better scenario here and probably hold up better. You know, this is where it really starts getting squirrely. And the guy says, hey, the amp works, but it just doesn't sound great. And this is where I'm starting to see the big differences. This, you know, if you think about a tube preamplifier, it's kind of made up of two parts. You kind of got your power supply here. That's what this whole entire board is. And you want an ultra quiet, high, I would call it reserve power supply, so that as your amplifier pulls on it, there's always lots of what I would call headroom or overhead of capacitance and storage to supply energy to the power supply, I mean the preamp board itself. So that's what you got in this thing. You got the preamp board, you got the power supply back here. Of course, you got your outputs and inputs. You got your transformer here to feed the power supply. And then you've also got here on the front knobs that are potentiometers that are a part of the tone control circuits, as well as a switch and a volume potentiometer here. So pretty simple circuit throughout. You know, not a highly sophisticated, but I will say a well-designed circuit. But let me take a break and grab a piece of paper. I'll show you something here. Okay, we're back. Let's take a look at this. So right here in this section, there's two capacitors that go here. And what they've got are 220 microfarad, 400 volt capacitors right here. And if you look at the original schematic for a SP-3-A1, this is supposed to be a 300 microfarad capacitor at 300 volts, and this is a 300 microfarad capacitor at 300 volts. Well, when you replace a 300 microfarad capacitor with a 220 microfarad capacitor, while it in theory may work, you've lost a lot of capacity there, and just ability to store energy. That's what capacitors do. And when the circuit pulls on it, needs that extra energy to drive the highs or lows in your preamp. These things are going to come up short and not provide everything that's needed. If anything, I would put 330, because 300 is not a common value these days. I would replace these with 330 microfarad capacitors at maybe 400 volts or something along that line. And so that's what you got in there. They actually got this part kind of right, 1500 microfarad. There's actually two inside this can at 50 volts, and they did that. They used 1500 microfarad capacitors here at 50 volts. These are Nikon. So not so bad there. They did right. But then you get over here, and this is actually originally was a single can, and this was a single can. And these were originally, if you'll see here, 75 microfarads times 2 inside this can at 475 volts. Well, what did they put in here? Let's look at it here. What does that say? It says 68 microfarads at 500 volts. So the voltage rating's fine, but they've only got 68 microfarads in here versus the 75 that was in the original power supply. So there again, taking a sacrifice on four major components in the power supply of this amplifier. And there again, this capacitor set here is another one of the 1500 microfarads at 50 volts, and then they kind of got this part right. So, and here again, another precision precision metal film resistor, where there probably should be a carbon comp with some surge capability, because as you turn this amplifier on and off, you're putting a lot of stress on that component there. Same with these two back here, and this one, and the one other one over here on the other side. So, I don't consider the orange drops here actually a bad thing. I may pull them out and test them and whatnot, but I'm certainly going to get rid of these yellow poly caps. This amplifier is fully restored in nice shape. These things can go anywhere from about $2,000 to $2,800, and this thing is deserving of a little better than just the yellow poly caps, in my honest opinion. Okay, one thing I want to show you, this ARC did a great job, but they put out a service manual that is just amazing for this thing. You can download it offline off of the Audio Research website here, and this thing is amazing. It's got part numbers for everything, values, very clear, great schematics here. And I was just going to show you that there's actually about 3 or 4 models of this amplifier that look the same on the face plate, but when you get inside of them, they're slightly different. 3 of the models, for the most part, the only difference is in the power supply board. And you can see here, this is the schematic for the SP-3-A1. If you flip over here on a page, they actually provide the SP-3 schematic here, which is just a little slightly different in the power supply. And if you flip over again here, oh man, it went the wrong way. They actually have a schematic here for the SP-3A version somewhere here as well, but I'm not finding it. It's in here, I promise you. Beautiful parts layouts, shows you exactly the voltages you should have at various points on the power supply, what it should look like on an oscilloscope, how much ripple you should have at each space. Like I say, more and more parts. And let's see, that's the three, and then here it'll say just the plain A series here. So this is the 3A, this is the plain 3, and then I think if I flip back one more slide here, yeah, you get the 3A1, which was kind of an evolution. They went from the 3 to the 3A1 to the, 3 to 3A, then to 3A1. There's also a 3C. If you go to the very last page of this, it'll have the schematic for it. And it's quite different, and you don't see a lot of those out there. But let me take you over here. First off, I want to insert some pictures of the power supplies right here. Let me do that. Okay, as you can see here, the original ARC SP-3 had a very simplified power supply. Just if you notice, there are 4 capacitors on this thing, 2 of which are dual 75. But you notice there's not a lot of capacitors on there, not a lot of filtering, a really basic power supply. Then you kind of move over to the ARC SP-3A, and you notice up here you kind of got 2 capacitors on each side, and then those dual ganged 1500 mounted down on the board. They're actual axial capacitors mounted down with a strip tie. And then you'll notice here in the ARC SP-3A1, they've moved to 3 can caps where those 2 1500 microfarad capacitors were stuffed inside of 2 cans there. So that's an easy way to identify. I had a hard time because this unit had been modified so heavily, but after some research we figured it out, and it is an SP-3A-1. Okay, I just showed you a couple pictures of all the power supplies there, but I'm going to take you over on over to my audio station here in my office, and I'll show you the unit I've got. Okay, as you can see, this is mine. Mine is actually the SP-3A version, not the 3A1 version. And if you notice here, it has beautiful walnut shell on it. And that was a factory option. You could order one of these walnut cases like this, and I'll show you. It just lifts off. And once you get it off, it's just like the 3A1 I have over there. And as you look at it here, it's just a kind of a beautiful walnut cabinet. These were, like I say, a factory option. But that one's not factory. There's a guy that I know that makes those. It's about $150 for one. So if you'd like to get a beautiful walnut cabinet for your SP-3, I can put you in contact with him and he can make you one. Another thing you notice that's different here, mine has a gold plate on it, on the face, gold and black versus the silver. That was another factory option. You could pick silver, you could pick the gold and black. Really no difference between the amps, and you could pick the different colors and all the different vintages of amplifiers. And see, I got a nice little line of dust here. But I was going to show you, you can see down in here, mine's got the original large can caps in it like that, and then the 2 smaller 1500s in here. You can see through the cage there, and mine still has all the original very, very large 1 microfarad coupling capacitors in it here that it used from the factory. So probably not going to pull the cover off of this because you can actually see it here pretty well here through the metal. It's just like a thin metal grid aluminum case that goes on these things. And by the way, they're easily dented. So be careful carrying your unit around and working on it or whatnot. But yeah, you kind of get a feel. And this is this power supply, like I say, for the most part it's the same as that one over there. There's just a few slight differences here and there in between these various models. So gonna jump back over. Oh yeah, by the way, a side note, this is a crazy looking little contraption, isn't it? It plugs in. It's got 5 connections on it. Nice little mounting thing. It's made by a company called Bear. At any rate, this goes in my BMW, the vehicle I drive every day. It's a fan control unit, they call it, or FSU, I think they're calling it. It controls basically the variability in the speed of your fan for your heater and air conditioner. And mine has gotten where it will not run on low; it just runs wide open all the time. And I did some research, found out this is what I'll be replacing it with, and come to find out, you know what this is? It's really nothing more than a single resistor on the inside here with a heat sink mounted to it. So pretty fancy deal. Good BMW. They wanted about $200 for that when I picked it up off of eBay, and got an original equipment part for $47. So that'll be a project I do tomorrow, but just a little side distraction here. But anyway, let me show you a couple other things about this amplifier that I'm going to kind of get to the bottom of. One, he's got some Sovtek 12AX7 LPSs, the long spiral plates. And 3 of the slots, which are not bad tubes at all. I actually like these a lot. And then there's 2 new Mylards that go in this space here. And then if you flip the whole unit around, and by the way, this is something I used to do a lot. I kind of got away from it, but lately I've gotten back to it. But this is nothing more than a Teflon cooking board, and it really makes sliding great big heavy amplifiers around on your table or bench much easier without kind of taking big notches out of your tabletop here like I've been doing. So anyway, then you flip over here into this stage, and they've got 1, 2, 3 really nice, and it's hard to tell, but you can maybe see the little logo there on the glass. These are vintage Telefunkens, so super nice tubes. I'm just not sure they're in the right places. Let me show you why. Okay, here's kind of a tube layout. You've got V1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 over here, then 7 and 8. And the way this amplifier works, you kind of got V1, 2, and 3 that work together, and then V4, 5, and 6 that work together. And V1 is actually the first tube in the kind of the series here, and V4 is the first in the series here with these. And you notice I got some asterisks on V1 and V4 here. If you come over here and read in the manual, and it tells you here what you should use in V1 through 8. This unit uses 8 ECC83s, otherwise known as 12AX7s, very popular tube. But it says V1 and V4 should be premium quality tubes such as Mylar, Telefunken, or Amprex. What they're saying is V1 and V4 matter the most. So if you're going to take an amplifier here and put some high dollar, these are probably $40 a piece tubes here, maybe 60, depending on their condition and how well balanced they are and whatnot, being vintage Telefunkens. You should probably have one of them in V1, which, hey, guess what? They got lucky. They got one of them right here, V1, that one. It is. But then you notice V4 here. For the other channel, check out where we're at. We're over here with the Sovtek on that side. So if you think about these 3 tubes here and this section of the amplifier right here is equivalent to these 3 tubes in this section of the amplifier. One for the left channel and one for the right channel over here. So if you kind of look at the way this amplifier is laid out, then you've got 3 Sovtek tubes on the, let's just say, the left channel, and 3 premium Telefunken tubes on the right channel. You might be better off moving one of these premium Telefunkens to right here, and then balancing out these 2 here with some Sovteks or something along that line. But just something to think about. Understand the layout of the amplifier. Heck, read the manual. It tells you a lot of good info here. As you can see, this is a manual I've used over the years many times, and you can see I've made a lot of notes. I've circled a lot of things here. Similarly here on the resistor layout, they tell you where every resistor is at in this thing, and then similarly with the capacitors. And you can see I've made a lot of notes over the years here on this paper, but should give you a general gist of the tube layout now and what to do with the tubes in this thing. I'm going to pull all these tubes, test them, and then make some recommendations on maybe layout or replacement as I test these things. You do want really well balanced tubes on each side here for this amplifier. One last thing before I dive into the restoration approach. I thought I'd point out two more things. Check out these little Mylar caps that are being used here on each side. Kind of hard to see them, but on this one. And remember I told you this was a nice little balanced, left channel, right channel thing. Check it out over here. The old dog bones have not been replaced on this channel, but they went in with something here. And I'm not a fan of the little Mylar type capacitors. But at any rate, here may be another reason this amplifier is not sounding so great. If you get right here, if you can see right about where my tip's at right there, that resistor is broken in half, so it's gotten hot at some point and basically cracked in half right here. So I'm ordering a whole bunch of resistors to replace in this thing. I'm going to get rid of the ones I pointed out back here earlier, and then all these are part of the bias resistors for these tubes. I'm going to replace all those with some Vichy-Dale 1% metal film replacements there. Okay, let's dive into the approaches on restoring this thing. Okay, really three options on doing an upgrade or restoration of one of these units. First option here is you can send it to Audio Research, and they have basically a part number you order, ship this thing to them. Somewhere, I think it's $1,295, so somewhere right around $1,300. And they will upgrade your entire power supply and some parts on this. They even replace the entire power supply board back here. So, and what the reason they're doing that is that some of these capacitor values that are in here you're trying to replace are quite tricky, and you end up with some creative things to do that these days. And so they've just basically redesigned the entire power supply so that it uses modern current components in it. So that's one path you can take. However, I have read lots of reviews online that say when they get their unit back, it seems kind of lifeless compared to the original factory unit they had prior to sending it off to AR. So may or may not be a route you'd want to go. One thing, if you do send it back and go that route, you get a warranty on it, and they check the entire unit out. It'd be back to factory specs, so could be a safe, easy route to take. The second route would be to rebuild a unit as is. In other words, like for like component replacements, going through resistors that are out of tolerance, replacing those with resistors that are in specifications. Same for capacitors, making sure they're all in specs. Maybe upgrading where possible. So, like where they replaced those big original caps with these Mundorfs. Wow, they could have went with something a little higher end. This is like $1 capacitor right here, maybe $1.50. You could put in some nice maybe paper and oil right here, or some type of higher end capacitor here. I like the Audins, a few others that are out there. You could put in some higher quality capacitor. So kind of a like for like upgrade where possible, right? And then your last choice would be to go with a CAE modifications. You got Joe Curcio. He's actually a senior audio design engineer for Apple. So the sound coming out of your iPhone or or MacBook may have been designed by this guy. But at any rate, he sells a kit. It's called the QPSA-7 kit. It's $200 with shipping here in the U.S. to you. And this kit's pretty aggressive, I will say. It does three things. First off, this QPSA kit itself is it's a significant, and here is one of them. It's a significant upgrade to the power supply. You have to build it, put the whole kit together, but it's basically a high-speed servo type regulator. Really produces really quiet power supply setup for the outputs here. However, it comes with a price, and I'll tell you what that is. There's he sends you a nice little book with it, and if you go through it, it's really broken down into 3 phases to this whole modification. And this is about a 40-page book here on the modifications you have to do. And man, there's a lot to it, I will tell you that. This is not an hour venture. This is a weekend or 2 venture here to do this and all the other pieces that Joe mentions. But a couple things about it. One, it goes through and it says it fixes the RIA curve. He doesn't believe the original RIA curve in these amplifiers was right, and it replaces a bunch of components in it to actually fix the RIA curves. There's a bunch of other minor enhancements that he makes, swapping out components, removing some components, etc. So when you get done, it's a fairly modified version of this amplifier. But the last part here is sometimes the killer for people. His modification removes the tone control circuits. So basically, everything here in the middle, other than the balance knob, you basically remove the treble, the bass, and the contour capabilities of this amplifier. And for some people that like a really plain Jane vanilla phono amp or preamp, that's a fine and dandy thing. For others that enjoy having a little bit of control over their bass or tone or whatnot, that can be a little bit of a downer for people that enjoy having the. This is kind of the contour. It's kind of a presence. It's how much effect these things have, and then this is the tone control knobs themselves for bass and treble. So. You could go down this path, and you're seriously, significantly modifying this amplifier. Joe's done a bunch of these over the years, I've seen mixed reviews out there. I've seen people say they absolutely love them, think it sounds great. I've seen other people say, "Wow, I kind of like the original sound." I've seen people say, really hate missing my tone controls now at this point. So. It's kind of a decision here, but what I've decided with this amplifier, I'm going to take the path of rebuild as is. I think this thing needs a lot of work here, just getting it back into kind of what I would call factory specs. And I'd like to get it running and playing and listen to it at that point and see how it sounds. And then, you always have the option then later of coming along and going down this path. I will tell you this path, this little QPSA-7 kit, it basically inserts in between the original factory power supply and the board here. So it's working with the same voltages coming out of this thing, basically some of these leads here. And you'll end up actually mounting this board up over here on the side like this right here in parallel. And then it kind of takes the power supply output of this and further regulates it as it sends it into the preamp and phono amp stages here of this amplifier. So it's an added option you can always do later there. And so we're going to get it rebuilt as is, get it playing well, get it sounding good. See how it sounds. If it sounds great, I'll leave it alone. I feel like it needs a little something more, could go down the path of just inserting this power supply regulator in there. It just, it adds significant cost, $200 plus the labor to put that in. You're probably looking at $300 to $350 for having one of these little kits installed. And then if you do the other steps in his modifications here and getting into basically changing a lot about this board here itself, you could add another $100, $150 in labor to it, maybe even $200. Because, like I say, this is a weekend or 2 project, not a 2 or 3 hour project on this thing. Okay, and last I'm going to leave you with what I'm building here. I always build up these sheets. I use Google Docs spreadsheets just so I always have them stored. But this is my ARC SP-3 rebuild parts list, and if you notice down here I got a couple different versions going, but I've got all the capacitors listed out here that's in one of these things, all the resistors, and if you scroll down I've got a few other components here, but I've kind of got what the part numbers are, what the original values were from the factory. Then I kind of lay out what they originally were, Mylar, a dual electrolytic, composite resistors, metal film, etc. And then I've kind of got a parts thing laid out here. So where's my source for these things? The Parts Express, the part numbers. Some of these things I get off of eBay because they're just cheaper there. A good bit of Mauser parts as you get on down into here. These are some of those ceramic composite resistors, 2 watt, 10% with surge capabilities that I was talking about. I'm going to use in some of the power supply sections. As you can see, I've got Mylar Caps here. I'm going to try some of these in this unit. Some of those get kind of expensive, up into the $9 and $10 a piece type range. And when you put 6 of them in there, there goes $60 on a restoration. And then I was building out kind of a parallel sheet here for some WIMA, the WIMA brand caps and orange drops. So just a different path you could take with the restoration to see how it sounded different. And what I thought I would do is order some of both, and I would try upgrading it, see how it sounded, and then maybe swap out the 6 main coupling capacitors with some different types of caps and see how they sound. But this is a typical thing I do. I build these for just about every amp on these spreadsheets. It's just really handy to have. 2 years down the line, somebody brings in another ARC SP3, and you're not having to dig back through and figure out what parts you ordered and replaced, because you've got them all in a nice spreadsheet. Stored them up in Google Docs so they're available. The other beautiful thing about sharing them in Google Docs is, if somebody contacted me and said, hey, I'm getting ready to rebuild an ARC SP3, I'd really like to see that parts list you've got. I can just share this. I can share this spreadsheet out and let other people get access to it. So, that's just the next step I take in putting together a parts order, and then I'll start getting this stuff ordered. Like I say, a few things from eBay, some stuff from Parts Express, some stuff from Mauser. And we should have all this stuff here in a week or two, and we can start the restoration on this thing. Okay, I'm going to wrap this up as being the end of part 1 here. Just basically a little bit about these things. I haven't shown you the back of it yet. I'll spin it around here, but just beautiful units. Really nice. These are all stainless steel connectors here on the back. You can see you've got multiple phono connections. You've got tuner, spare, tape 1, tape 2. You've got tape ins and outs here. And then you got lots of outputs here that you can send off to other places. And then you can plug in like your amplifier and other things into this, so that when you turn this thing on and off, it turns off the other devices on your unit. Like here it'll say model SP3, but you gotta really you gotta go back to those 3 pictures I showed you to really get a feel for which model you have of the SP3, because they'll all say just SP3 on the back of the thing. And well, I'm seeing something interesting down in here, and I don't know if I can, let me see if I can get a flashlight to show you. It's hard to see, but the end of this Mundorf cap right here actually has the metal foil sticking out the end of it. It didn't seal up properly, so not a great capacitor even from the factory there. At any rate, we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. I'm getting a parts order together today. It's Saturday, somewhere around, what is it? It is August the 6th here, 2016. Hopefully parts will be in here in a week or two. Swapping a couple emails back and forth with Jim McShane. He is a well-known expert in this audio restoration business for a long time, and got a couple emails going back and forth with him right now about the best components to use for both these 300 at 300 microfarad and these 425 volt caps you need here at 75 ohms, 75 microfarad. These are actually the tougher to figure out what to do with. These, the only problem you get into is it would be really easy to go get a 330 microfarad 400 volt capacitor. I've got some Nippon Chemicons, actually, brand new ones, but the problem is they're big and fat and round and about that tall, and they've got the 2 prongs on the bottom, and they just don't match up with the circuit leads underneath of these really well. So you almost need radial capacitors with just the loose leads like these, but then you have a hard time finding the values you're looking for. So swapping a couple emails with him right now. Once we get that sorted out, I'm gonna get the parts list underway. When the parts come in, we'll start restoring this thing, and I'll walk you through it along the way in parts 2, and maybe it'll take 3 parts, depending on whether we decide at the end to dive into one of these kits. I've had this kit a while. I bought it for another restoration a year or 2 back, and when we got done doing the amplifier without it, both myself and the customer decided not to put that kit in. So I've had this thing laying around for a while, but might end up using it. We will see. Thanks again, everybody, for watching. Hopefully you learned a little bit about the Audio Research SP3. Like I said, this is a great, amazing sounding unit. It's one of the quietest units. Oh, one last thing. I do plan to replace this this dual gang potentiometer right here, which is the volume knob, with a with like an Alps Blue Velvet knob. It just I've read great things about those things. As a matter of fact, if you send this unit back to AR to get their $1,300 upgrade kits, that is one of the things they will do. They will replace this with an Alps potentiometer, audio potentiometer. So anyway, thanks everyone, and keep watching. We'll keep making these videos. I'm going to do a question and answer over the next week or 2. I've gotten about 40 questions right now, and I need to sort through them and pick out the right ones and make a video around those as well. So stay tuned. Thanks again, everybody, and have a great week or day or whatever you're up to.